really is harder to brush off. Because Ellie said, "You spoke to Ellie?" He shouldn't have spoken to Ellie. She rang me. She wanted to make sure you were okay. He pauses, not for dramatic effect, although it has that result. She told me she'd moved out. It's true. She moved out a week ago, but I convinced myself she'd moved back in quickly enough that I wouldn't need to tell anyone. I was approximately 2 days away from dressing up in her clothes and waving at people from the window in order to convince friends and neighbours that everything was still A-OK. It wasn't a little fight, I confess. Seb's really face collapses into one of such pity it's all I can do not to well up. We both suggest a cigarette break at the same time. I think the fire's gone, Seb assures me. That's what she said, I reply. 2. November 4th, 2008, 11:21 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. Obama, 0. McCain, 0. 270 needed to win. I first met Ellie at a 2008 election night party held by a mutual friend of ours who just happened to be a libertarian. Normally, I would balk at being near anyone who would describe themselves as such, but Tom had a big house, good weed, and an encyclopedic knowledge of Asian cinema. That he was the only person in South London who wanted John McCain to win wasn't quite enough to counter these excellent qualities, and the fact that he'd only invited 30 or so 20-somethings who were all sane non-libertarians was typical of him. He hated people agreeing with him, loved confrontation, and would almost exclusively start arguments with the phrase, "I'm just saying." He addressed a crowd of 5. "I'm just saying, you lefties all fawn over Obama, but policy for policy, he has more in common with Cameron than Brown." A clueless 20-something in a beanie hat took the bait. "So, you want another 4 years of the same regressive Republican agenda that took the UK into 2 wars? Ellie entered my life half watching David Dimbleby informing us the polls for Kentucky, Indiana and Georgia would close in 49 minutes, and half watching Tom take on the hipster. A wry smile crossed her face. She knew full well what he was doing. It was that smile that got me. I'm a sucker for any kind of smile, but a wry one just floors me. Her smile was one of the first things I remember really liking about Ellie. The second was the way she tucked her hair behind her ears. There was a surety in the action. Maybe it was because, as a teenager, I was teased about my sticky-out ears. I even grew long hair to cover them. To see someone purposefully putting theirs on show made me want to yell out, "Good for you." I didn't, obviously. That in a certain light she looked like Holly Hunter when Holly Hunter was in her mid to late 20s, so broadcast news era Holly Hunter, certainly didn't inhibit my attraction. They shared the same quizzical eyebrows and flawless skin. Plus she had Kate Winslet's neon red hair from Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, and wore the most nondescript zipped-up grey hoodie and navy jeans, like she was paradoxically trying not to be noticed yet screaming, "Look at me." It took me forever to make my move. I became paranoid I'd been staring at her and she'd noticed and was now wondering who this weirdo creep with massive ears and... Wait. Were we wearing the exact same hoodie? It was a sign. I grabbed 2 beers from the kitchen and went for it, handing her one and observing, "You must have seen Tom do this before to smile like that." She squinted slightly, viewing me with the requisite amount of skepticism with which you should view someone who comments on your smile, and took the drink. "He certainly has a need to be disliked," she said, elongating the vowels in need, an Ellie-esque idiosyncrasy I have since found both adorable and infuriating in equal measure. We watched as Tom stepped his attack up a notch with a 1-2 of questions on the difference between the House and the Senate, and a much more aggressive than passive investigation into his opponent's previous UK election viewing habits.